welcome to Sleepy Story Facts, and to this very special sleep story, one that has been crafted just for you, for this quiet moment, for this soft and unhurried hour. Tonight is an invitation to let go of the day that has just passed, to release whatever thoughts are still drifting through your mind, and to allow your body to sink a little deeper into wherever you are resting right now, whether you are lying in a warm bed with the covers pulled close, or settled into a favorite chair with the lights turned low. This is your space. This is your time. Nothing is required of you tonight except to simply be still and to listen. This gentle bedtime story will carry you far from the ordinary world, far beyond the hum of traffic, the glow of screens, and the quiet noise of daily life. And it will bring you somewhere vast and beautiful and deeply, profoundly calm. Tonight, we are going to travel together through the universe, not in a rushing, dramatic way, but slowly, the way a cloud moves across a night sky, the way a breath releases in the dark. We are going to drift gently through distant galaxies, past rivers of ancient starlight, and across the great silent spaces that stretch between worlds. And at the end of this long, unhurried journey, we will come to rest near one of the most extraordinary and peaceful places in all of existence, a dormant black hole, sleeping in the dark like a vast and ancient presence, pulling nothing, disturbing nothing, simply resting in the stillness of space. Before we begin, take a moment to settle in. Feel the weight of your body right now. Feel how the surface beneath you is holding you completely, asking nothing in return. Let your shoulders drop just a little. Let your jaw soften. If your hands are clenched or curled, allow them to open gently, like leaves unfolding in the morning. Take a slow breath in through your nose, feeling your chest and belly rise with the quiet fullness of it. And then let it out through your mouth in one long, easy release. You do not need to breathe in any special way tonight. Just let your breath find its own natural rhythm, slow and steady, like the tide. There is nothing you need to remember from this relaxing story. There are no tests, no questions, no reason to hold on to anything. You can simply let the words wash over you, the way warm water moves across skin, gentle and continuous and deeply, deeply soothing. If your thoughts wander, and they will, because that is what minds do, simply notice them and let them drift on past, the way stars drift slowly across a clear night sky. You do not have to chase them or follow them. Just return gently to the sound of this voice and to the vast, quiet dark that is waiting for you. This is your calming narration, your nighttime story, your passage into deep sleep. Now, close your eyes if you have not already, and let us begin. Scientists have long known that the universe is almost incomprehensibly large. Not large in the way a mountain is large, or an ocean, or even a continent, but large in a way that gently dissolves all ordinary sense of scale. The observable universe, the part we can see with our most powerful instruments, stretches approximately 93 billion light years across. A single light year is the distance that light travels in one full year, moving at 186,000 miles every second. To cross just one light year on foot would take hundreds of millions of human lifetimes. And yet, there are an estimated 2 trillion galaxies scattered across that unimaginable span, 2 trillion islands of stars, each one containing hundreds of billions of suns, each sun perhaps circled by worlds of its own. When astronomers look at the night sky and point their instruments toward the darkest, emptiest seeming patches of space, patches that look like nothing to the naked eye, they find, hidden in that apparent emptiness, thousands upon thousands of distant galaxies, each one glowing with ancient light that has been traveling toward us for billions of years. That light left its source long before the Earth existed, long before our sun had even begun to form. And it has been moving through the silent dark ever since, patient and unhurried, until it finally arrived here, at the lens of a telescope, at this moment, at this night, somewhere out in that immense, soft darkness. There are galaxies shaped like great spirals slowly turning, their arms made of billions of stars curling outward the way water curls around a gentle drain. There are elliptical galaxies, rounded and ancient, like glowing embers held together by gravity, their light warm and amber and extraordinarily old. And there are irregular galaxies, shapeless and wandering, drifting through space without symmetry, following no particular outline, simply existing in their own unhurried way. All of them are moving. All of them are drifting slowly apart from one another, carried outward on the gentle expansion of space itself, like raisins in a slowly rising loaf of bread, each one moving away from all the others, not through space, but with space, as the universe continues its long, quiet breath outward into the dark. As you rest here in the quiet of this nighttime story, breathing slowly, letting the weight of your body settle deeper into the surface beneath you, allow your imagination to drift inward, not toward the edges of the universe this time, but closer, much closer, toward the particular galaxy that you call home. The Milky Way is the name we have given to our own galaxy, and it is a spiral, a great slowly turning collection of somewhere between 100 and 400 billion stars, arranged in sweeping arms that curl outward from a dense and glowing center. If you could somehow rise above it and look down from an impossible distance, it would look like a softly luminous pinwheel, turning with extraordinary patience in the dark, not quickly, not urgently, but in the way that all truly vast things move, with a slowness so deep it borders on stillness. Our sun, the warm star that lights your days and sets your evenings golden, lives roughly 2/3 of the way out from the center of the Milky Way, settled into one of those quiet spiral arms called the Orion Arm, or sometimes the local spur. It takes our sun approximately 225 to 250 million years to complete a single orbit around the galactic center, a journey so long that this vast circle of travel is sometimes called a cosmic year. And in all of recorded human history, in all the thousands of years of our civilizations and stories and discoveries, our sun has not moved even the smallest fraction of 1 degree along that path. We are, in the most literal sense, barely moving at all. And yet, we are also traveling at approximately 514,000 miles per hour through space as we follow that great arc, carried smoothly and silently, with no sensation of motion whatsoever, the way you cannot feel the turning of the earth beneath you as you lie still right now. The night sky you see when you step outside on a clear evening and look upward is a view through the disk of our own galaxy. You are looking through layers of stars, some close and some unimaginably distant, their light blending together into that soft, cloudy band that ancient people saw and named the Milky Way, imagining it as spilled milk, as a river, as a road walked by gods. In truth, it is a cross-section of our own home, seen from the inside, a quiet reminder that we are not observers looking at the universe from some safe external position, but participants nestled deep within it and at the very center of the Milky Way, hidden behind vast clouds of gas and dust that soften and obscure it from view. There lives a sleeping giant, a supermassive black hole known to astronomers as Sagittarius A star, resting at the heart of our galaxy with a mass approximately 4 million times greater than our sun. Right now, at this particular moment in cosmic time, Sagittarius A star is quiet. It is dormant. It is not actively consuming material in great dramatic bursts of energy, the way some distant galactic cores do, blazing across the universe with light brighter than entire galaxies. Instead, it rests. It simply exists at the center of everything, holding the galaxy together with its immense gravitational presence. The way the still point at the center of a slow spinning top holds everything in quiet balance. The stars nearest to it orbit it at extraordinary speeds, moving in their own tight ellipses around that dark and silent center, completing their orbits in just a few years rather than hundreds of millions. Like small fish circling slowly around a place in a pond where the water is deepest and most still. And though we are far from it, roughly 26,000 light years separate us from that quiet center, there is something deeply calming about knowing it is there. A vast, patient presence at the heart of the galaxy that has been there for billions of years and will be there for billions more, asking nothing, demanding nothing, simply resting in the dark at the center of this slow, enormous, softly glowing wheel of stars. As you fall deeper into this relaxing story, let the image settle gently in your mind. The Milky Way turning, unhurried and ancient, and at its very heart, a sleeping black hole, patient as deep time itself, waiting there in the velvet silence of the galactic core, as you two grow quieter and heavier and more still, drawn softly downward into the deep and restful dark of sleep. As you sink a little deeper into the comfortable stillness of this gentle bedtime story, let your breath continue its slow and easy rhythm, in and out, unhurried and soft, like the tide on a calm and moonlit shore. There's nothing pulling at you tonight. There is nowhere you need to be. You are simply here, resting, drifting, letting the words carry you further and further from the busy surface of the day and deeper into a place of quiet wonder. And so we drift now, slowly and without effort, away from the familiar neighborhood of our sun, away from the warm yellow glow of our own small corner of the Orion arm, and we begin to move gently, the way smoke rises from a candle in a still room, inward toward the heart of the Milky Way. As we travel, we pass through fields of stars so numerous and so varied that the mind softens simply trying to take them in, not with urgency, not with effort, but with a kind of sleepy, half-dreaming wonder that is exactly right for a night like this one. Every star we pass is a sun. Each one is a vast, ancient furnace of light and heat, burning through its lifetime at its own quiet pace. And every single one of them is telling us a story through its light. A story that left its source long before it reached our eyes. This is one of the most soothing and extraordinary truths of the night sky, that when you look at a star, you are never seeing it as it is right now, but as it was. Light travels fast, faster than anything else in the universe. But even at that extraordinary speed, it takes time to cross the distances between stars. The light from our nearest stellar neighbor, Proxima Centauri, takes just over 4 years to reach us. When you see it glimmering on a clear night, you are looking more than 4 years into the past. The light from stars further away has been traveling for decades, for centuries, for thousands of years, moving silently through the dark, carrying its quiet message across distances that have no comfortable human equivalent. Some of the stars visible to the naked eye on a clear night sent their light toward us before the great cathedrals of Europe were built, before paper was first made in China, before the earliest written alphabets were scratched into clay, and some of the stars recorded in ancient astronomical catalogs no longer exist at all. They burned through their fuel and ended their lives long ago. And yet, their light continued traveling, faithfully and silently, and is still arriving here, still crossing our sky, still reaching the eyes of anyone who happens to look up on a still and quiet evening. There is something deeply restful about this truth, that light is patient, that it asks nothing of the vast emptiness it moves through, that it simply travels, carrying its information forward through the dark, without rush, without urgency, arriving whenever it arrives. The stars we're drifting past now, as we move slowly inward along the disk of the Milky Way, are of every color and every age. There are young blue stars, burning brilliantly and briefly in stellar terms, living their intense lives for only a few million years before exhausting themselves. There are older yellow stars like our sun, steadier and more moderate, burning for billions of years in a long and even-tempered middle age. And there are the ancient red dwarfs, small and cool and extraordinarily long-lived, burning so slowly and so gently that they will still be shining long after every other type of star has gone dark. Red dwarfs may live for trillions of years, so long that the universe as it currently exists is still far too young to have produced a single red dwarf that has died of old age. As we drift past these ancient, patient stars, the galactic center grows slowly more luminous in the far distance ahead of us, a soft and hazy brightening, like the first suggestion of dawn gathering on a very distant horizon. The density of stars increases as we drift inward, their light weaving together into something that feels almost like a gentle, ambient glow, warm and diffuse, and deeply, softly beautiful. And somewhere within that quiet brightness, still far ahead, still resting in its deep and ancient stillness, Sagittarius A star waits, patient, dormant, unhurried, at the very still point of our slowly turning galaxy. You can feel yourself growing heavier now, your thoughts becoming slower and softer, your body sinking with a comfortable, easy weight into the surface beneath you. As the ancient light of a billion distant suns drifts past you in the velvet dark, each one a quiet world, each one a story, each one a tiny warm ember in the immeasurable, soothing silence of space. As this relaxing story continues to carry you gently forward through the dark, let yourself settle even more fully into the stillness of this moment. Your breathing slow, and even your body soft and heavy in all the right ways. Your mind releasing its hold on the ordinary world, one quiet thought at a time. There is no effort required here. There is nothing to figure out or remember. You are simply drifting, the way a feather drifts on a still evening, moving not because it is trying to, but because the air is soft and the direction is easy. And there is nowhere more natural to go than down, slowly, gently, into rest. We continue our long and unhurried drift inward through the Milky Way. And as we travel deeper along the disk of the galaxy, we begin to pass through something extraordinary. Vast, slow-moving clouds of gas and dust that drift between the stars like enormous curtains of colored silk, catching the light of nearby suns and glowing with the most improbable and delicate beauty. These are nebulae, and they are among the most peaceful and visually breathtaking structures in the known universe. The word nebula comes from the Latin for mist or cloud, and that is exactly what they resemble: enormous, softly glowing mists, some of them stretching across hundreds of light years of space, drifting in the slow and patient dark between the stars. Some nebulae glow in shades of rose and amber, lit from within by the young stars newly formed inside them, their light diffusing through the surrounding gas the way candlelight diffuses through a paper lantern, warm and soft and full of a quiet, interior radiance. Others appear as dark shapes against a brighter background, dense pillars and columns of dust so thick that no light passes through them, rising from the edges of glowing clouds like the shapes of sleeping figures seen against a lit window, still and dark, and somehow deeply restful. And within these clouds, in the densest and most sheltered regions where the gas is coolest and the dust is thickest, something extraordinary and profoundly slow is always happening. Stars are being born, not quickly, not dramatically, but over millions of years. Gravity works its patient and invisible work on the gas and dust of a nebula, drawing it gradually inward, pulling loose clouds into denser and denser configurations, tightening them slowly the way a hand slowly closes around something soft. As the material gathers and compresses, it warms. Deep within these collapsing clouds, temperatures begin to rise over thousands, and then millions of years of gradual compression, until, at last, the conditions at the very center become sufficient to ignite nuclear fusion. And a star is born, quietly and without announcement, in the deep interior of a cloud that has been preparing for this moment for longer than the Earth has existed. It is one of the most soothing rhythms of the universe, this continuous, slow cycle of creation. Stars forming in the sheltered depths of nebulae, burning through their long lives across millions or billions of years, and then, at the end, returning their material back into space as gas and dust, seeding new nebulae, contributing to new clouds, offering the raw ingredients for the next generation of stars, and perhaps the planets that will form around them, and perhaps the life that will one day arise on those planets, and look upward at the night sky and feel, without quite knowing why, a sense of recognition, a quiet feeling that the stars are not strange and distant, but somehow familiar, somehow close, somehow part of the same long story that includes everything as we drift slowly through the outer edges of one such nebula now. The light around us shifts and softens, taking on a faint, rosy warmth, as though we are floating inside a vast and gentle lantern. The gas moves barely at all. On human timescales, it would appear completely motionless, a perfect stillness. And the only sound, if sound could travel here in this breathable quiet of imagination, would be something like the very slowest, deepest, most resonant note imaginable. A hum so low and so vast that it would feel less like hearing and more like resting, less like listening and more like being held. The galactic center continues to glow ahead of us, closer now, its light a little warmer, a little more present, Sagittarius A star still resting in its deep and ancient dormancy at the heart of everything, patient and still. As you too grow more patient and more still with every slow and easy breath, your body heavier, your mind softer, the story folding around you like a warm and weightless dark as the soft rose light of the nebula fades gently behind us, like the last warmth of an evening fading from a window after sunset. We drift free of its luminous clouds and find ourselves once again in the open dark of the inner galaxy, surrounded now by a richer, denser field of stars than anything we passed through in the outer arms. Here, closer to the heart of the Milky Way, the stars are more numerous, their light layering over one another in a warm and continuous ambient glow, not the sharp and isolated pinpoints of a dark country sky, but something softer and more enveloping, like the light inside a room where many candles have been burning for a very long time. You are still breathing slowly, still sinking, still letting this gentle bedtime story carry you forward without effort. And there's nothing here to disturb that quiet ease, only the stars drifting past in their unhurried multitudes, each one a sun, each one a world of its own, each one burning patiently through its own long and unremarkable middle age. And as we drift through this richer starfield, something begins to become apparent that is easy to overlook when you think of stars as solitary objects scattered individually through space. Many of them are not alone. In fact, more than half of all the stars in the Milky Way are thought to exist in systems of two or more, bound together by gravity in slow and continuous orbits around one another, circling a shared center of mass, the way two dancers might circle each other on a very wide and very slow dance floor, neither leading, neither following, simply turning together in a balance that has been maintained for millions or billions of years. These paired systems are called binary stars, and they come in an extraordinary variety of configurations. Some binary pairs are so close together that they nearly touch, their outer atmospheric layers merging and exchanging material in a slow and continuous flow, like two candle flames leaning toward each other in a still room. Others are separated by distances so vast that a single orbit takes thousands of years to complete. The two stars moving so slowly relative to each other that the relationship would be invisible to any observer watching on a human timescale. Their gravitational bond detectable only through the most careful and patient of measurements. There are binary systems where both stars are similar in size and temperature, burning side by side in a kind of quiet symmetry, and others where the two companions are utterly different. One a large, cool, red giant, swollen to enormous size in the later stages of its life. The other a small, dense white dwarf, the compressed remnant of a sun that has already burned through its fuel and collapsed inward to roughly the size of a planet, extraordinarily dense and faintly glowing, like an ember that has been cooling for billions of years. In these mismatched pairs, the white dwarf sometimes draws material slowly from its larger companion, pulling wisps of gas across the space between them in a thin, curving stream that spirals gradually downward onto its surface, accumulating over long stretches of time with a patience that has no human equivalent. This process is so slow, so continuous, and so utterly without drama that it becomes, in its own way, one of the most restful images the universe offers. Two stars, locked in their ancient gravitational conversation, exchanging material across the dark in a thin and graceful arc, turning around each other in the long and silent arithmetic of gravity, undisturbed by anything, unbothered by the passage of time, simply continuing the dance they began millions of years ago and will continue for millions more. As we drift slowly past one such pair now, their combined light casting a faint doubled warmth across the dark around us, the galactic center draws closer still, its glow ahead of us now unmistakable. A softly concentrated luminance, warm and ancient, like the glow of a great city seen from a long distance on a clear and quiet night, beckoning without urgency, offering nothing more than its own patient, beautiful presence. And at the very heart of that glow, still undisturbed, still resting in its vast and ancient dormancy, Sagittarius A-star waits, as it has waited for billions of years, holding the turning galaxy in the gentle and irresistible grip of its gravity, asking nothing, consuming nothing, simply being still and dark and incomprehensibly patient. As you two grow still, your breath soft and slow, your thoughts loosening and drifting like the thin stream of gas arcing between two distant suns, unhurried and weightless, carrying you gently and continuously downward into the deep and restful quiet of sleep. As you rest here in the deepening quiet of this sleep story, your body soft and still, your breathing slow and automatic and easy. Let the image of those two distant suns fading gently behind us dissolve like the last detail of a half-remembered dream, leaving only the warmth of the galactic center ahead, growing slowly, patiently larger as we continue our long and unhurried drift inward through the heart of the Milky Way. The stars here are closer together than anything we have passed through on our journey. Not dangerously close, not violently packed, but gathered with a kind of quiet density, the way people gather in a warm and softly lit room on a winter evening. Each one distinct, each one carrying its own light and its own history, but the overall feeling one of gentle fullness, of a space that is inhabited and luminous and old. We are now in the region astronomers call the central molecular zone, a vast reservoir of gas and dust and stars that surrounds the galactic core, stretching for roughly 1,000 light years in every direction around Sagittarius A star. And it is here that the galaxy begins to feel most like a single coherent thing, a great slow system with a center of gravity that everything acknowledges in its own quiet way, bending its path inward by the smallest of degrees, orienting itself the way a compass needle orients toward magnetic north, not dramatically, not suddenly, but with a calm and continuous inevitability. And here, within this innermost region, there is a group of stars whose behavior is unlike anything else in the galaxy. They are known as the S stars, a collection of young, bright blue stars that orbit Sagittarius A star at extraordinarily close range, tracing tight elliptical paths around the black hole at speeds that seem impossible by any ordinary reckoning. One of the most closely studied of these, a star designated Estwo, completes a full orbit around Sagittarius A star in just 16 years, moving at its closest approach at nearly 3% of the speed of light. Not the millions of years our own sun requires to complete its vast circuit of the galactic center, but 16 years, a span of time a human being can hold in memory, a span of time that feels almost personal, watching Estwo trace its orbit around the dark and invisible center of its path, watching it accelerate as it swings close and then slow again as it arcs away. Astronomers were able to confirm beyond any remaining doubt that something of enormous mass occupies that dark central point, something that does not shine, something that does not announce itself with light, but whose gravitational presence is written unmistakably in the curved and accelerating paths of every star around it. This is the first thing the black hole teaches you, not through drama or spectacle, but through patience, through the slow, curved testimony of the stars that circle it. And as we draw closer still, something else begins to make itself felt in this calming narration, something that requires no instruments to appreciate, only a willingness to let the mind soften around an idea that is strange and beautiful in equal measure. Time, here near the black hole, does not pass at quite the same rate as it does in the quieter, emptier regions of space. This is not a metaphor or a feeling, but a physical reality, a consequence of Einstein's general relativity, the same deep geometry of space-time that governs the orbits of the S stars and the slow expansion of the universe itself. The stronger the gravitational field, the more space-time curves around it. And the more deeply curved space-time is, the more slowly time passes for anything within it. Near Sagittarius A star, time flows at a slightly different rate than it does far from the galactic center, the seconds stretching almost imperceptibly, the hours softening at their edges, the long river of time, bending gently under the weight of 4 million solar masses resting in the dark. There is something profoundly, unexpectedly soothing about this truth. That time itself is not rigid, not absolute, not the same everywhere, but soft and responsive, bending around mass and gravity, the way water bends around a stone, the way a deep breath bends the moment it inhabits, making it longer and quieter and more spacious than the breath before it. As we drift closer to that dark and patient center, time itself seems to ease its pace around us, the moments growing longer and more still, the quiet between thoughts expanding, the darkness ahead warm and vast and ancient, and Sagittarius A star just ahead now, resting in its incomprehensible stillness. Its event horizon a perfect circle of deep and velvet dark, pulling nothing tonight, asking nothing, simply present, the way the deepest sleep is simply present, waiting for you, patient and certain and near, as this gentle nighttime story carries you forward one last quiet step. Let yourself arrive here fully, not with urgency, not with any quickening of the breath, but with the same slow and easy surrender that has brought you this far through the dark. Your body is heavy now, pleasantly and completely heavy, the kind of heaviness that belongs only to the deepest and most restful moments, when the muscles have fully released their last small tensions, and the mind has stopped its quiet searching, and everything has simply settled, the way snow settles after a long and silent fall. We have drifted a very long way together through this relaxing story, through the outer edges of the observable universe, through the spiral arms of the Milky Way, past nebulae glowing softly in rose and amber, past binary stars turning in their ancient gravitational dances, past the bright and racing S-stars curving their tight ellipses around the invisible center. And now, at last, we are here, we are close. Ahead of us, in the deep and velvet dark of the galactic core, the event horizon of Sagittarius A star resolves itself into something visible, something present, something that the mind can rest upon the way the eye rests upon the still surface of a lake on a windless evening. It is a perfect circle of absolute darkness. Not the darkness of a room with the lights off, not the darkness of a cloudy night, but a darkness that is complete in a way that feels almost restful. A darkness that is not empty, but full of the curved and folded geometry of space-time itself. A place where the ordinary rules of distance and direction have softened into something else entirely. The boundary we are approaching is called the event horizon, and it is one of the most extraordinary thresholds in the known universe. It is not a surface in the way a wall or a floor is a surface. There is no material there, no edge you could touch or feel. It is simply the point beyond which the curvature of space-time becomes so complete that nothing, not matter, not energy, not light itself, can follow a path that leads back outward. Light that crosses the event horizon continues inward forever, not because it is trapped in any violent sense, but because all directions inside the event horizon lead inward, the way all directions from the South Pole lead north. It is a place where the geometry of space has quietly rearranged itself into something new. And just outside the event horizon, at a distance roughly 1.5 times its radius. There exists one of the most beautiful and improbable structures in the universe, the photon sphere. This is a region where the curvature of spacetime is precisely sufficient to hold light itself in orbit, where photons, the particles of light, trace perfect circles around the black hole, traveling at the full speed of light and going nowhere, looping endlessly around that dark and patient center in orbits that are exquisitely balanced between escape and capture. If you could somehow hover at the photon sphere and look sideways, you would see the back of your own head, light from your own body, having completed its long circular journey around the black hole, and returned to your eyes. The universe folded gently around you in a loop of pure and weightless light. These orbits are unstable in the technical sense. A photon nudged slightly inward will spiral slowly down. A photon nudged slightly outward will curve away and escape into the wider dark. But in this moment, in this slow and calming narration, we can imagine them as perfectly still, perfectly balanced. A ring of light circling in absolute silence around the sleeping giant at the center of our galaxy. Sagittarius A star is quiet tonight. It has been quiet for a long time. Astronomers believe it last consumed significant material in a period roughly 10,000 years ago, and before that, millions of years of dormancy. It rests now as it has rested for all of recorded human history, holding its vast gravitational presence at the center of the Milky Way, the S-stars circling it at their extraordinary speeds, the photon sphere glowing faintly in the curved dark around it. Time moving just slightly more slowly here than anywhere else in the galaxy, and the event horizon itself a perfect, still, dark circle like the pupil of an eye that has been closed in sleep for 10,000 years. You are very close now. The darkness ahead is soft and complete and utterly peaceful. Your breath is slow. Your thoughts are few and quiet and gentle. The story continues to hold you, warm and weightless, as you float here at the edge of everything, at the threshold of the deepest dark in the galaxy, and feel not fear, not awe in any sharp or startling sense, but only a deep, slow, soothing recognition that this is what rest truly looks like, at its most absolute and its most complete. And so we rest here now, in the deep and velvet quiet, just outside the event horizon of Sagittarius A star, hovering in the curved and softened space-time at the edge of the most patient thing in the galaxy. And there is nothing here that asks anything of you, nothing that requires your attention or your effort, only the vast and soothing dark, the faint warm curve of the photon sphere glowing just ahead, and the slow, continuous, almost imperceptible process that has been unfolding here since the black hole first formed, billions of years ago, in the deep and unwitnessed past. This is your deep sleep story now, your calming narration, your passage further and further from the waking world. And the fact we settle into in this part of our journey is one of the most quietly extraordinary in all of physics. A discovery so strange and so beautiful that it changed forever the way scientists think about black holes, about time, and about the ultimate fate of everything in the universe. It is called Hawking radiation, named for the physicist Stephen Hawking, who first described it theoretically in 1974, and it is the mechanism by which a black hole, even a dormant one, even one as vast and still as Sagittarius A star, very slowly, over timescales almost beyond imagining, loses energy and mass and will in the incomprehensibly distant future, eventually cease to exist. The process begins at the very edge of the event horizon, in the quantum fabric of spacetime itself. Empty space at the smallest scales is not truly empty. It is threaded with a continuous, restless activity, pairs of virtual particles flickering into existence and annihilating each other so quickly that they leave no lasting trace. A constant and invisible murmur in the fabric of the universe that under ordinary circumstances amounts to nothing at all. But at the edge of an event horizon, something different can happen. One of these briefly appearing particles falls inward across the boundary, while its partner escapes outward into the surrounding space. The escaping particle becomes real, carries away a tiny quantity of energy, and that energy comes, ultimately, from the mass of the black hole itself. The result is a faint and extraordinarily gentle radiation, leaking from the boundary of the event horizon like the softest possible breath, carrying away energy in quantities so small that for a black hole the size of Sagittarius A star, the effect is almost unimaginably slow. To evaporate a supermassive black hole of this scale through Hawking radiation alone would take something in the range of 10 to the power of 87 years, a number so large that writing it out in full would require more digits than there are atoms in the observable universe. The current age of the universe is approximately 13.8 billion years, a number that already exceeds comfortable human comprehension. And yet, it is essentially zero when set against the timescale on which Sagittarius A star will eventually, gently, quietly dissolve into the dark. There is something extraordinarily restful about this truth, that even the most massive and enduring objects in the universe are subject to a process of the gentlest possible diminishment, losing themselves not in any violent or dramatic way, but through the slowest conceivable whisper of radiation, particle by particle, quantum by quantum, across timescales so vast they make the age of stars feel like a single breath. The universe is in no hurry. Nothing here is urgent. Even the ending of a black hole is patient beyond all reckoning, stretched across an expanse of time so deep and so still that the word forever begins to feel almost accurate as you float here beside the quiet event horizon, breathing slowly, your body completely at rest, your mind soft and unhurried. You can let this truth settle into you the way warmth settles into cold hands held near a gentle fire. You are resting in the presence of something that will outlast every star currently burning in the night sky, something that will still be here long after the last red dwarf has finally cooled and gone dark, something that measures its existence not in years or centuries or even millions of years, but in numbers that have no name in ordinary language. And it is simply resting. It is simply here, dark and patient and completely, profoundly still. Just as you are still now, your breath barely perceptible, your thoughts dissolving at their edges like the faintest possible radiation drifting outward from the boundary of a sleeping black hole, carrying you gently and continuously, and without any effort at all, into the deep and restful dark of sleep. Here, in the deep and absolute quiet beside the sleeping event horizon of Sagittarius A star, something is happening that no instrument can fully capture and no photograph can show. Something that exists not in the visible spectrum of light or the measurable pulse of radiation, but in the very structure of the moments themselves, in the way time moves here, or rather, in the way it barely moves at all. You are breathing slowly now, your body completely surrendered to rest, your mind a soft and unhurried place, and the story that holds you is itself becoming slower, more spacious, each sentence stretching a little longer than the last, each word arriving with a little more room around it. The way the moments themselves stretch and soften here at the edge of the deepest gravity in the galaxy. This is gravitational time dilation, and it is not a poetic idea, but a measurable, confirmed, and deeply beautiful physical reality. Time passes more slowly in stronger gravitational fields. This was predicted by Albert Einstein in his general theory of relativity, published in 1915, and it has been confirmed by extraordinarily precise experiments here on Earth by atomic clocks flown in aircraft that tick at a slightly different rate than identical clocks left on the ground by GPS satellites, whose onboard clocks must be continuously corrected to account for the fact that they experience slightly weaker gravity than clocks at sea level, and therefore run slightly faster. These are small effects in the gentle gravity of our everyday world. But near a supermassive black hole like Sagittarius A star, the effect deepens into something that reshapes the meaning of time itself. For an observer hovering close to the event horizon, time flows more slowly relative to someone far away in the quieter regions of space. The closer to the event horizon, the more pronounced this stretching becomes, until at the boundary itself, from the perspective of a distant observer, time appears to stop entirely. Imagine watching something fall slowly toward the event horizon of a black hole, a leaf drifting downward in an autumn wind, taking the slowest possible path toward the dark. As it approaches the boundary, it appears to slow, its movement becoming more and more gradual, the gap between each moment of its descent stretching wider and wider, until it seems to hang there, perfectly still, frozen at the threshold, its image fading slowly as the light it reflects becomes more and more redshifted, stretched by gravity into longer and longer wavelengths, dimming from visible light into infrared, into radio waves, into something below the threshold of any detection, dissolving gently into the dark. For the leaf itself, if it could experience the crossing, the event horizon would pass quietly and without drama. There is no wall there, no boundary that can be felt, only the continued and unremarkable passage of its own time, flowing at its own rate from its own perspective. But from the outside, it simply slows and softens and fades, becoming part of the dark in the most gradual and undramatic way imaginable. This is why black holes were once called frozen stars, because the original star that collapsed to form the black hole appeared to any distant observer to slow and freeze at the moment of its horizon's formation, its light redshifting away into invisibility across an infinite stretch of external time. The collapse never quite completing from any outside perspective, only softening endlessly into the dark. The river of time here is the slowest river in the universe, its current barely perceptible, its surface barely rippling, carrying everything that enters it forward at such a diminished pace that the difference between a second and a century begins to lose its sharpness, and the difference between now and a very long time from now softens into something almost without meaning. There is nowhere in the known universe where time moves more gently, more spaciously, more unhurried than in the deep gravitational field of a sleeping black hole. And it is in this extraordinary slowness that this calming narration finds its deepest home. Because what you are doing right now, lying still in the dark, your breath slow and your body heavy, and your mind releasing its last grip on the waking world, is something that rhymes with this cosmic truth. You are slowing down. You are letting the river of your own time ease its pace, your thoughts drifting further apart, the spaces between them growing wider and more restful, each breath arriving with a little more quiet around it than the last, the night deepening, the dark softening, the story continuing to hold you gently as you drift, unhurried and weightless, in the slowest and most soothing current imaginable, toward the deep and complete and endlessly patient rest of sleep. There are black holes in the universe that are anything but quiet, great consuming engines at the centers of distant galaxies, surrounded by vast and brilliantly glowing rings of superheated material spiraling inward at enormous speeds, blazing with light across wavelengths from radio waves to X-rays, outshining entire galaxies of hundreds of billions of stars. Their presence announced across the universe by jets of energy launched from their poles at nearly the speed of light, visible from billions of light years away to any instrument patient enough to look. These are the active galactic nuclei, the quasars, the blazars, the loudest and most luminous objects in the known universe, burning with an intensity that has no equivalent in ordinary experience. Sagittarius A star is not one of these. Sagittarius A star is, in the most complete and literal sense, at rest. And the reason its rest is so complete, so absolute, so profoundly undisturbed, lies partly in the nature of what surrounds it, or rather, in the near absence of what surrounds it. When a black hole is actively consuming material, that material does not fall directly inward, but instead forms what is called an accretion disk, a flattened ring of gas, dust, and plasma orbiting the black hole in gradually decaying spirals, heating as it compresses, radiating energy across the full spectrum of light as it slowly works its way inward toward the event horizon. The friction and compression within an active accretion disk can raise temperatures to millions of degrees, generating more light per unit of mass than almost any other process in the universe, turning the infall of ordinary matter into an extraordinary and continuous blaze of radiation. But Sagittarius A star's accretion disk, in this current long epoch of its history, has thinned to almost nothing. The reservoir of nearby material that once fed it more actively, has been largely consumed or dispersed across billions of years. And what remains is a structure so tenuous, so cool by comparison, so diffuse and unhurried that astronomers classify it as a radiatively inefficient accretion flow. A slow, thin, barely luminous drift of material moving in wide and leisurely orbits around the dark center, contributing only the faintest whisper of energy to the surrounding environment. Imagine a river that once ran full and fast and loud, carrying everything in its current with unstoppable force, and that has over long ages slowed and quieted and thinned until it is now little more than a shallow, barely moving film of water over smooth stone, reflecting the sky above it in perfect stillness, making almost no sound at all. That is the accretion environment of Sagittarius A star right now. In this long and restful chapter of its existence, what little material does drift close enough to feel the black hole's gravitational influence moves in wide, slow, graceful arcs, cooled gas, and ancient dust tracing their patient paths through the curved spacetime of the galactic core, in no hurry, contributing nothing dramatic to the silence, simply moving as gravity asks them to move, slowly and continuously, and without complaint, from where we rest beside the event horizon, looking outward into this thin and barely luminous environment. The effect is one of extraordinary peace. The faint ring of drifting material catches what little light filters down from the dense starfields of the galactic core above us, glowing with a warmth so subtle it is more felt than seen. A barely perceptible amber haze at the very edge of visibility, turning with the patience of deep geological time around the dark and sleeping center, and beyond that faint ring, the galactic center itself, the layered light of billions of stars softened by distance and dust into a warm and diffuse glow, like the memory of a sunset held gently in the sky long after the sun itself has gone below the horizon. You are very still now. Your breath is barely perceptible even to yourself, a slow and soft tide moving in and out with almost no effort, your body completely and entirely at rest, the last traces of the waking world dissolving from the edges of your awareness, like the last thin wisps of an accretion disk, cooling in the ancient dark. The story is here with you, warm and continuous, asking nothing, offering only this, the deep and soothing presence of the most patient place in the galaxy, the quiet company of a sleeping black hole, the faint amber warmth of ancient dust turning slowly in the dark, and the soft, continuous, utterly unhurried passage of time in the slowest and most restful corner of the universe. As you rest here in the deep and soothing quiet beside the sleeping event horizon, your body completely still, your breathing slow and effortless, your mind drifting in the long and unhurried spaces between thoughts. There is something all around you that cannot be seen, cannot be felt, cannot be detected by any sense you possess, and yet is more abundant than everything visible in the universe combined. It passes through you without interaction, through the event horizon without pause, through the entire galaxy without leaving a single trace in any spectrum of light. And yet it is here, and it has always been here, and without it the Milky Way itself would never have formed. the stars would never have gathered into their great spiral arms, and this black hole, at whose quiet edge we rest, would never have grown to its current immensity. It is called dark matter, and it is perhaps the most serene and unassuming substance in the known universe. Ordinary matter, the kind that makes up stars, planets, gas, dust, your body, this story, everything you have ever seen or touched, accounts for only about 5% of the total mass and energy content of the universe. Dark matter accounts for approximately 27%, more than 5 times as much. A vast and invisible ocean filling the spaces between and within galaxies, present everywhere and detectable nowhere, except through the quiet testimony of gravity. Astronomers first began to suspect its existence in the mid-20th century, when they noticed that galaxies were rotating in ways that could not be explained by the gravity of their visible material alone. Stars at the outer edges of spiral galaxies were moving far too quickly. They should, by ordinary gravitational reckoning, have been flung outward into the intergalactic dark long ago. And yet they stayed orbiting at speeds that implied the presence of an enormous additional mass distributed in a great invisible halo surrounding and permeating the galaxy. A halo that did not shine, did not absorb, did not emit a single photon of light in any wavelength, but whose gravitational presence held everything together with the quiet and irresistible patience of deep weight. Here in the galactic core, dark matter is denser than anywhere else in the Milky Way, concentrated by billions of years of gravitational settling into the deep well of the galactic center, pooling most abundantly around the very black hole beside which we rest. And yet it is completely, perfectly, absolutely silent. It does not glow with the faint amber warmth of the accretion disk. It does not curve the light around us the way we can see ordinary matter doing. It does not announce its presence in any way that any instrument has yet been able to capture directly. It simply is, everywhere and always, the invisible majority, the quiet foundation upon which all the visible architecture of the universe rests. Scientists have proposed many candidates for what dark matter might actually be. Weakly interacting massive particles, sterile neutrinos, primordial black holes, axions. And the true answer remains one of the deepest and most genuinely open questions in all of physics. What is known is its gravitational effect, the gentle and consistent way it shapes the paths of stars and galaxies across cosmic scales, the way it guided the formation of the large-scale structure of the universe in the earliest epochs after the Big Bang, seeding the great filaments and voids and galaxy clusters that make up the universe's vast and intricate architecture. There is something deeply, unexpectedly comforting about the idea of dark matter, about the fact that the universe is filled to the brim with something patient and invisible and entirely non-destructive, something that passes through everything without disturbing it, that holds the galaxy together without demanding anything in return, that has been present since the earliest moments of cosmic time and will continue to be present long after the last visible star has gone dark. It is the quietest possible kind of presence, felt only in its effects, known only through inference, existing in the spaces between things and within things simultaneously, as pervasive and as undemanding as the darkness of a room in which you have been sleeping for a long and restful time. You are surrounded by it now. As you rest here beside the sleeping black hole, dark matter drifting through the curved space-time of the galactic core in its vast and silent abundance. Through the event horizon, through the ancient dust of the accretion disk, through the story itself, through you, and you cannot feel it, and it cannot feel you. And that mutual, perfect non-interference is its own kind of peace, its own kind of rest, a reminder that the universe holds far more quiet than noise, far more invisible patience than visible drama, and that the deepest and most enduring things are often the ones that ask the least attention and make the least sound. If dark matter is the invisible ocean that fills the spaces within and between galaxies, holding them together with the quiet authority of deep gravity, then dark energy is something stranger still. Not a substance in any ordinary sense, not a particle or a field that gathers and pools and concentrates, but a property of space itself, a gentle and continuous pressure woven into the very fabric of the universe, present equally in every cubic centimeter of existence, in the space between galaxies, and in the space between atoms, in the void between the stars of the galactic core, and in the quiet dark of the room where you are resting right now, pushing outward, always and everywhere outward, causing the universe to expand, not just continuously, but with a gradually accelerating pace, the fabric of space stretching in all directions, at once like the surface of an enormous and very slowly inflating sphere, carrying the galaxies apart from one another, not through any motion of their own, but simply because the space between them is growing, quietly and without pause, in every direction simultaneously. Dark energy accounts for approximately 68% of the total mass energy content of the universe, the single largest component of everything that exists, and also the least understood, the most mysterious, the one that fits most uncomfortably into the current frameworks of physics, the one that keeps the deepest questions open and alive. It was discovered, or rather its existence was inferred, in 1998, when two independent teams of astronomers studying the light of distant supernovae found that those explosions were dimmer than expected, farther away than the models predicted, as though the universe's expansion, rather than slowing under the mutual gravitational pull of all its matter, was actually speeding up. The universe was not coasting or decelerating into eventual stillness. It was accelerating, driven outward by something with no name and no clear nature, something that did not dilute as space expanded, but remained constant. A persistent and irresistible pressure built into the geometry of existence itself. Einstein had actually included something very like dark energy in his original equations of general relativity, a term he called the cosmological constant, a value he introduced to keep his model of the universe in the steady state he then believed it to occupy, and which he later called his greatest blunder when evidence for the universe's expansion first emerged. But the discovery of accelerating expansion brought his cosmological constant back, not as a blunder, but as a profound and still unexplained truth, a number built into the universe, whose origin and meaning remain genuinely, beautifully unknown. Here, beside the sleeping event horizon of Sagittarius A star, in the deep gravitational well of the galactic core, the effect of dark energy is at its most locally negligible. Gravity dominates here, holding everything close, counteracting the outward pressure of expansion across the scales of galaxies and clusters. But on the largest scales, on the scales of the universe itself, dark energy wins, quietly and inexorably, stretching the distances between galaxy clusters wider with every passing moment, carrying the most distant regions of the universe beyond any possible future horizon of observation into a permanent and unreachable dark. There is something extraordinarily soothing about this truth if you allow yourself to rest inside it rather than reaching for its implications. The universe is breathing outward. It has been breathing outward since the first fraction of a second after its beginning, and it will continue breathing outward for longer than any number with a comfortable name can describe, driven by a pressure so gentle and so evenly distributed that no single point in space feels it more than any other, a force with no center and no edge and no direction, simply present, simply persistent, simply the quiet ongoing fact of space becoming more space, the universe making more room for itself with every passing moment, in the most unhurried and unstoppable process imaginable. You are part of that breathing. The space within you and around you and between the atoms of your body is the same space that is gently expanding throughout the cosmos, subject to the same quiet pressure, woven from the same fabric. When you breathe out slowly in the dark and feel the room settle around you, you are in some small and entirely non-metaphorical sense participating in the same outward breath that the universe itself has been exhaling since before the first star was born. A breath with no end in sight, patient and vast, and completely, endlessly, restfully calm. There is a sound that fills the universe, so faint and so evenly distributed that it took humanity decades to recognize it for what it was. A sound that is not really a sound at all, but a form of light stretched by the long expansion of space into wavelengths far below the threshold of visible color, drifting through every corner of the cosmos with the same quiet patience that characterizes everything we have encountered on this long and restful journey. It is called the cosmic microwave background radiation, and it is the oldest light in the universe, the faint, cooling afterglow of the universe's earliest moments, still present everywhere, still traveling, still filling all of space with its ancient and barely perceptible warmth, like the last lingering heat of a fire that burned 13.8 billion years ago and has been gently cooling ever since. In the first moments after the Big Bang, the universe was extraordinarily hot and dense, a state so extreme that matter and energy were indistinguishable, photons of light, unable to travel more than the smallest distances before being absorbed and re-emitted. The entire cosmos opaque in the way a thick fog is opaque, filled with light that could not move freely, trapped in a continuous and furious exchange with the matter around it. Then, approximately 380,000 years after the beginning, a moment that sounds long, but is barely a breath against the full age of the universe. The cosmos had expanded and cooled enough for electrons and protons to combine into neutral hydrogen atoms for the first time. And in that moment, space became transparent. The light that had been trapped, that had been bouncing and reabsorbing and re-emitting for hundreds of thousands of years, was suddenly free. It streamed outward in all directions simultaneously, filling the universe with a flash of light that has been traveling ever since, cooling and redshifting as space expanded around it, its wavelengths stretching from the visible and infrared into the microwave range over the billions of years of cosmic expansion. Until today, it arrives at every point in space, including here beside the quiet event horizon of Sagittarius A star, as a whisper of microwave radiation at a temperature of just 2.7 degrees above absolute zero. The coldest possible temperature, barely above the complete absence of heat, 2.7 degrees Kelvin, a temperature so close to absolute zero that it represents almost perfect cold, almost perfect stillness, almost the complete cessation of all thermal motion. And yet, it is not zero, not quite, not yet, because the light is still there, still present, still filling space with its ancient and almost imperceptible warmth. A warmth that carries within it the memory of the universe's earliest and most dramatic moment, preserved across 13.8 billion years of cosmic expansion and cooling. Arriving here quietly and continuously from every direction at once, when astronomers first mapped the cosmic microwave background in detail, they found that it was not perfectly uniform. There were tiny variations in temperature, fluctuations of only 100,000th of a degree, patterns of very slightly warmer and very slightly cooler regions spread across the sky in a map of extraordinary complexity and beauty. These tiny variations were the seeds of everything. The slightly denser regions where gravity would eventually pull matter together into the first structures, the first clouds, the first stars, the first galaxies, the first galaxy clusters, and ultimately the Milky Way itself, with Sagittarius A star at its heart, the universe you inhabit, the galaxy around you, the black hole beside which you rest. All of it grew from those ancient, barely perceptible fluctuations in the temperature of the first light, those tiny ripples in the fabric of the early cosmos, as subtle and as consequential as the difference between a dream and wakefulness, as quiet as the difference between one slow breath and the next. As you lie here, still and heavy and deeply rested, you are bathed in that ancient light right now, just as you always have been, just as every point in the universe always is 2.7 degrees of ancient warmth arriving from every direction simultaneously. The oldest thing you will ever be touched by, the first light of everything, still traveling, still present, still quietly keeping you company in the dark as you drift further and further from the waking world. The story holding you gently, the ancient warmth of the universe surrounding you completely, the black hole resting in its eternal stillness just ahead, and sleep deep and complete and utterly restful, drawing you softly and inevitably downward into its own patient and welcoming dark, as this deep sleep story continues to hold you, gently and without effort, in the warm and ancient dark beside the sleeping event horizon. Let your awareness settle even more completely into the stillness of this moment, your body a soft and motionless weight, your breath a barely perceptible rise and fall, your mind resting in that beautifully empty space between waking and dreaming, where thoughts arrive slowly and dissolve before they fully form, where the boundary between yourself and the quiet dark around you has grown soft and permeable and kind. We remain here beside Sagittarius A star, but our attention drifts now, gently and without urgency, to something that exists in the surrounding starfields of the galactic core. Objects so extraordinary in their density and their stillness that they feel, in the context of this calming narration, like cousins of the black hole itself, kindred expressions of matter, compressed beyond all ordinary reckoning into forms of almost incomprehensible compactness and quiet. These are neutron stars, the remnants of massive stars that have ended their long lives in the most dramatic of stellar events, and then settled in the aftermath into something of almost perfect stillness, when a star significantly more massive than our sun exhausts its nuclear fuel. The outward pressure that has balanced gravity throughout its long life disappears, and the core collapses inward in a fraction of a second with a violence that briefly outshines entire galaxies. A supernova, the most energetic event in the ordinary universe, but what remains at the center after the explosion has expanded outward and faded is something extraordinary. A sphere of matter so compressed that the electrons and protons of ordinary atoms have been forced together into neutrons, packed into a ball typically only about 20 kilometers across, roughly the width of a large city, and yet containing more mass than our entire sun. A teaspoon of neutron star material, were it somehow possible to lift such a thing, would weigh approximately 4 billion tons, not because of any exotic property of the matter itself, but simply because of how extraordinarily tightly it has been compressed by gravity into that small and perfect sphere. The surface of a neutron star is thought to be the smoothest object in the universe. The enormous gravity flattens any irregularity to a height of no more than a few millimeters across the entire star. Mountains on a neutron star, if they can be called that, are no taller than a few centimeters, smoothed down by gravity into a surface so perfectly spherical that it makes the most precisely engineered object ever produced by human hands look rough and approximate by comparison. And many neutron stars spin, not slowly, not moderately, but with extraordinary speed, some completing hundreds of full rotations every single second. Their spinning so regular and so precise that when astronomers first detected the radio pulses emitted by a rotating neutron star in 1967, they initially considered the possibility that the signal was of artificial origin. So perfectly timed was its rhythm, so metronomic and unwavering in its regularity, that it seemed impossible for anything natural to maintain such precision. These spinning neutron stars are called pulsars, and their pulses arrive with a consistency that rivals the most accurate atomic clocks, each rotation identical to the last, to within extraordinary tolerances, the universe producing in a dead star a timekeeper of almost perfect reliability. And yet, despite that rapid spinning, despite the extraordinary density, despite the violence of their origin, neutron stars in their quieter moments carry a kind of deep structural peace. Matter settled into the most stable configuration gravity can produce short of a black hole itself, compressed to its limits, and then still the surface smooth beyond any earthly comparison. The interior, a realm of physics so exotic it remains only partially understood. Layers of neutron-rich material giving way at the deepest levels to conditions that may have no equivalent anywhere else in the observable universe. As you rest here in the dark, your own body compressed by nothing more than the gentle pull of Earth's ordinary gravity into the soft and comfortable weight you feel against the surface beneath you, you can let the image of a neutron star settle quietly in your mind. That small, impossibly dense, perfectly smooth sphere, spinning in the dark with metronomic patience. Its surface flattened to a perfection that gravity alone has produced, resting in the aftermath of an ancient violence that left behind only this: something dense and still and quietly, completely at peace with what it has become, turning in the dark as you two turn gently inward, deeper into rest, deeper into the soft and welcoming quiet of sleep. As you drift here in the deep and soothing quiet of this nighttime story, your body entirely still, your breath moving in its own slow and automatic rhythm, your mind resting in that soft and borderless place between thought and sleep. There is something passing through you right now that you will never feel, never detect, never be aware of in any ordinary sense. And yet, it is as real and as physically confirmed as the ground beneath your bed, as the air in your lungs, as the ancient microwave warmth of the first light that surrounds you from every direction in the dark. It is a gravitational wave, or rather a continuous succession of them, ripples in the fabric of space-time itself, produced by the most massive and energetic events in the universe, and traveling outward from their sources at the speed of light, passing through everything, through planets and stars, through the dense material of the galactic core, through the curved space-time beside the event horizon of Sagittarius A star, through the walls of the room where you are resting, through your body, through the very atoms of which you are composed, without leaving any trace, without depositing any energy, without disturbing a single thing in their passage, the most perfectly non-intrusive messengers imaginable, carrying information across the universe in complete and absolute silence. Gravitational waves were predicted by Albert Einstein in 1916, a direct consequence of his general theory of relativity. He showed mathematically that accelerating masses should disturb the fabric of space-time, the way a moving hand disturbs the surface of still water, sending ripples outward in all directions that carry energy away from their source. But Einstein himself doubted they would ever be detected. So extraordinarily small did he calculate their effect to be. so far below any conceivable measuring technology of his era. For nearly a century, gravitational waves remained a theoretical prediction, beautiful and mathematically certain, but observationally invisible, passing through every detector ever built without leaving any measurable trace. Then, on the 14th of September 2015, instruments of almost incomprehensible sensitivity detected, for the first time in human history, the passage of a gravitational wave, a ripple produced by the collision and merger of two black holes approximately 1.3 billion light years away, an event that had occurred 1.3 billion years ago, and whose disturbance in space-time had been traveling ever since, crossing the universe at the speed of light, passing through everything in its path until it arrived at two detectors in the United States and caused each one to change in length by a distance approximately 1,000th the diameter of a single proton, 1,000th of a proton's width, the disturbance that crossed 1.3 billion light years of space and announced the merger of two black holes, was smaller than any object that can be directly imaged, smaller than any scale that has any ordinary meaning, and yet it was measured, confirmed, and heard, translated into sound by the scientists who detected it as a brief rising chirp, a fraction of a second long, the universe speaking in the only voice that could cross that distance and arrive here intact. A whisper so quieted makes silence seem loud by comparison. The sources of gravitational waves are among the most dramatic events the universe produces. Merging black holes, colliding neutron stars, the remnants of massive stellar collapses, the slow in-spiral of binary systems drawing ever closer over millions of years until they finally touch and merge. But by the time those waves arrive here, having crossed the immensity of intergalactic space, they are stripped of all their drama, reduced to the faintest possible geometric trembling in the fabric of space, a barely perceptible breathing of the universe at frequencies below the threshold of any human sensation. And so the most violent events in the cosmos arrive here as the gentlest possible whispers, as something less than a feeling, as a truth known only through the most patient and precise instruments ever constructed by human minds, passing through you and through the sleeping black hole and through the ancient dark of the galactic core in complete and perfect silence, carrying their messages from the distant past through the continuous and unresisting fabric of everything. You are still now, completely and entirely still, and the universe is whispering through you in waves you cannot feel, rippling through the space-time you inhabit with the lightest possible touch, the quietest possible presence, the most restful possible reminder that even the loudest events in existence arrive here, at this moment, at this depth of rest, as nothing more than silence moving through silence, darkness breathing through darkness, the story continuing to hold you in its warm and weightless embrace as you fall deeper and more completely into sleep, as you rest here in the deep and complete quiet of this sleep story, your body fully surrendered to the surface beneath you, your breath so slow and so soft it has become part of the silence rather than a disturbance within it, your mind drifting in that beautiful and borderless territory where the story continues to reach you. But the waking world has grown very far away. Let the narrative carry you now into a different kind of vastness. Not the vastness of space, which we have traveled together so patiently across this long and unhurried night, but the vastness of time, the deep future of the universe itself, stretching forward from this moment across scales that make the current age of the cosmos feel as brief and as recent as a single slow breath drawn in a very long and quiet sleep. The universe is approximately 13.8 billion years old. The stars currently burning in the night sky, including our own sun, will continue burning for billions of years more. Our sun has roughly 5 billion years remaining in its stable middle age, a span of time so long that every mountain range on Earth will have risen and eroded and risen again many times before it ends. But even stars, even the most patient and long-lived of the red dwarfs we drifted past in the early stages of our journey, burning so slowly and so gently on their small reserves of hydrogen, will eventually exhaust their fuel and go dark. The last red dwarf stars are expected to fade somewhere between 1 and 10 trillion years from now. Numbers so large they require a conscious effort to even gesture toward. Timescales beside which the entire current age of the universe is a barely perceptible opening moment. The first quiet note of a piece of music that will play for longer than any name we have for time. After the last star has faded, the universe will enter what cosmologists call the degenerate era, a vast and extraordinarily long epoch during which the remaining matter in the universe consists primarily of white dwarfs, neutron stars, and black holes, all of them slowly cooling, slowly radiating away their last residual heat into the surrounding dark. The white dwarfs fading from white to yellow to orange to red to a color below red, cooling over trillions upon trillions of years into dark, cold spheres of crystallized matter, drifting through a universe that has grown very quiet and very dark and very still. There will be no new stars forming to replace those that have faded. The gas and dust from which new stars might have formed will have been consumed or dispersed, and the universe will be, by any ordinary measure, dark. Not the rich and star-filled dark of the galactic core where we rest now, but a true and almost complete darkness, the darkness of a universe that has moved well past its long and brilliant stellar age into something quieter and more final. And through all of this, through the fading of the last red dwarfs, through the long cooling of the white dwarfs into darkness, through the trillion-year settling of the degenerate era, Sagittarius A star will still be here. The black hole beside which you rest tonight will outlast every star that is currently burning in the observable universe, will outlast the white dwarfs, and the neutron stars will persist in its deep and patient dormancy through epochs of time, so vast they dissolve all ordinary meaning, slowly losing mass through its whisper of Hawking radiation, diminishing by amounts so small they are effectively nothing across any human timescale, continuing its long and untroubled rest in the dark for spans of time that make even the trillion-year future of the last stars feel brief and preliminary. There is an immense and unexpected comfort in this, that the universe's long journey is not toward violence or chaos or any sharp and sudden ending, but toward quiet, toward stillness, toward a darkness that arrives not catastrophically, but gradually, the way night arrives, the way sleep arrives, the way this story has been arriving since its first gentle word, settling over everything with patience and with softness, and with the complete and unhurried certainty of something that has all the time in existence and is in no hurry to reach its destination. You are already there. You have already arrived at that stillness, that quiet, that soft and complete surrender to the dark that the universe itself is moving toward across its incomprehensible future. Your breath is barely there. Your thoughts have almost stopped. The story is still here, still holding you, and the black hole is still resting in its ancient and patient dark. And the last light of the fading stars drifts slowly outward into a universe that is growing quieter and more restful with every passing moment. Just as you are, just as you have been, all through this long and gentle night, as you rest here in the deep and complete quiet of this sleep story, your body fully surrendered to the surface beneath you, your breath so slow and so soft it has become part of the silence rather than a disturbance within it, your mind drifting in that beautiful and borderless territory where the story continues to reach you. But the waking world has grown very far away. Let the narrative carry you now into a different kind of vastness. Not the vastness of space, which we have traveled together so patiently across this long and unhurried night, but the vastness of time, the deep future of the universe itself, stretching forward from this moment across scales that make the current age of the cosmos feel as brief and as recent as a single slow breath drawn in a very long and quiet sleep. The universe is approximately 13.8 billion years old. The stars currently burning in the night sky, including our own sun, will continue burning for billions of years more. Our sun has roughly 5 billion years remaining in its stable middle age, a span of time so long that every mountain range on Earth will have risen and eroded and risen again many times before it ends. But even stars, even the most patient and long-lived of the red dwarfs we drifted past in the early stages of our journey, burning so slowly and so gently on their small reserves of hydrogen, will eventually exhaust their fuel and go dark. The last red dwarf stars are expected to fade somewhere between 1 and 10 trillion years from now. Numbers so large, they require a conscious effort to even gesture toward. Timescales beside which the entire current age of the universe is a barely perceptible opening moment. The first quiet note of a piece of music that will play for longer than any name we have for time. After the last star has faded, the universe will enter what cosmologists call the degenerate era, a vast and extraordinarily long epoch during which the remaining matter in the universe consists primarily of white dwarfs, neutron stars, and black holes, all of them slowly cooling, slowly radiating away their last residual heat into the surrounding dark. The white dwarfs fading from white to yellow to orange to red to a color below red, cooling over trillions upon trillions of years into dark, cold spheres of crystallized matter drifting through a universe that has grown very quiet and very dark and very still. There will be no new stars forming to replace those that have faded. The gas and dust from which new stars might have formed will have been consumed or dispersed, and the universe will be, by any ordinary measure, dark. Not the rich and star-filled dark of the galactic core where we rest now, but a true and almost complete darkness. The darkness of a universe that has moved well past its long and brilliant stellar age into something quieter and more final. And through all of this, through the fading of the last red dwarfs, through the long cooling of the white dwarfs into darkness, through the trillion-year settling of the degenerate era, Sagittarius A star will still be here. The black hole beside which you rest tonight will outlast every star that is currently burning in the observable universe, will outlast the white dwarfs, and the neutron stars will persist in its deep and patient dormancy through epochs of time, so vast they dissolve all ordinary meaning, slowly losing mass through its whisper of Hawking radiation, diminishing by amounts so small they are effectively nothing across any human timescale, continuing its long and untroubled rest in the dark for spans of time that make even the trillion-year future of the last stars feel brief and preliminary. There is an immense and unexpected comfort in this, that the universe's long journey is not toward violence or chaos or any sharp and sudden ending, but toward quiet, toward stillness, toward a darkness that arrives not catastrophically, but gradually, the way night arrives, the way sleep arrives, the way this story has been arriving since its first gentle word, settling over everything with patience and with softness, and with the complete and unhurried certainty of something that has all the time in existence and is in no hurry to reach its destination. You are already there. You have already arrived at that stillness, that quiet, that soft and complete surrender to the dark that the universe itself is moving toward across its incomprehensible future. Your breath is barely there. Your thoughts have almost stopped. The story is still here, still holding you, and the black hole is still resting in its ancient and patient dark. And the last light of the fading stars drifts slowly outward into a universe that is growing quieter and more restful with every passing moment. Just as you are, just as you have been, all through this long and gentle night, as this calming narration moves gently toward its own quiet ending. Just as all things in the universe move gently toward theirs, let yourself feel how completely you have arrived in this moment. How far from the waking world you now rest. How soft the boundary has become between the story and the silence, between the words and the space between the words, between the breath coming in and the breath drifting out, between the thought that almost forms and the dark that receives it before it can fully take shape. You are very close to sleep now. You have been close for a long time, drifting at that beautiful and barely perceptible threshold where the story continues to reach you like warmth from a very distant and very gentle source, asking nothing, offering only its own soft and continuous presence in the dark. We spoke in the last part of the universe's long journey toward stillness, toward the fading of the last stars, toward the degenerate era of cooling white dwarfs and patient neutron stars drifting through a darkening cosmos. And beyond even that extraordinary depth of future time, there is one final chapter in the universe's story, not an ending that arrives with any sharpness or drama, but a dissolution so gradual and so gentle that the word ending hardly seems appropriate at all. In the far future, incomprehensibly far beyond the fading of the last stars, beyond the cooling of the last white dwarfs, beyond even the extraordinary timescales we have already visited, the black holes themselves will begin their final, almost imperceptible diminishment. Sagittarius A star, this vast and patient presence, beside which we have rested through so much of this long and restful night, will begin to lose itself through its whisper of hawking radiation, with increasing, though still extraordinarily slow, effect as the universe around it cools toward absolute zero, and the ambient temperature of space finally drops below the temperature of the radiation the black hole itself emits. At that point, the black hole will begin to lose more energy than it receives from its surroundings, and its slow evaporation will begin in earnest. Though earnest is a word that requires immediate qualification because the timescale involved stretches to 10 to the power of 87 years for a black hole of this mass, a number so far beyond any ordinary comprehension that it sits in the mind not as a quantity, but as a feeling, the feeling of something that will take so long it has effectively become synonymous with forever. And yet, eventually, across that unimaginable span, the black hole will grow smaller and smaller, losing mass in quantities too tiny to name, radiating its last energy into a universe that has grown cold and dark and almost perfectly still until in its final moments that will themselves last longer than the entire current age of the universe, it releases its remaining mass in a last quiet burst of radiation and simply ceases to be, not with violence, not with any sound, simply with the completion of a process that began billions of years before and continued with absolute patience through every era of cosmic time, ending at last in a brief and gentle flash of light in a universe too dark and too cold to have any observer left to see it, a light that travels outward through empty space and fades. And then there is nothing, and then there is a stillness so complete that even the word stillness feels too active, too present, too full of something to accurately describe what remains. And that is the universe's final gift to itself. Not destruction, not collapse, not any violent termination, but the most gradual and the most complete and the most absolute rest imaginable, a silence arrived at through patience beyond all reckoning, a darkness achieved not through any sudden extinguishing, but through the slow and natural completion of every process that light and matter and energy and time were always, from the very beginning, moving toward. You are resting in a small and intimate version of that same movement right now. Your body is still. Your breath is barely there. The story has carried you as far as words can carry anything, to the very edge of the silence that waits beyond all stories, beyond all narration, beyond all the gentle facts of distant galaxies and sleeping black holes and ancient light and cold molecular clouds, and the slow fading of the last stars. And now the words themselves are growing fewer, the spaces between them wider, the dark between the sentences deeper and more welcoming. And there is nothing left to do, nothing left to follow, nothing required of you at all except this: to let go completely and without reservation into the deep and patient and absolutely restful dark that has been waiting for you here beside the sleeping heart of the galaxy since before this story began. And so we arrive here together, you and this story, at the place where words begin to dissolve back into the silence from which they came, where the facts and the galaxies and the ancient light and the sleeping black hole all soften at their edges and become something simpler and warmer and more immediate. Not knowledge to be held, not images to be remembered, but a feeling, a texture, a quality of rest so complete that even the act of listening has become almost indistinguishable from the act of sleeping. You have traveled a very long way tonight in this deep sleep story. You have drifted from the outermost edges of the observable universe, past 2 trillion galaxies glowing with the ancient light of 100 billion suns each, inward through the spiral arms of the Milky Way, through rose and amber nebulae, where stars are born over millions of years in slow and sheltered silence, past binary suns turning in their patient gravitational dances, through the dense and luminous star fields of the inner galaxy, past the bright ellipses of the S-stars curving their rapid paths around an invisible center, and finally here, to this place of deepest rest beside the sleeping event horizon of Sagittarius A-star, the dormant heart of our galaxy, resting in the dark as it has rested for all of human history and will rest for all of the time that remains. You have rested beside the faintest whisper of Hawking radiation leaking from the event horizon like the softest possible breath. You have floated in the gravitational slowness of dilated time, each moment stretched a little longer than the last, the seconds here softer and more spacious than anywhere else in the galaxy. You have drifted through the invisible ocean of dark matter, that patient and non-interfering presence, filling all of space without sound or light. You have been touched by the ancient warmth of the cosmic microwave background, the 2.7-degree afterglow of the universe's first light, still arriving from every direction after 13.8 billion years of patient traveling. You have heard, without hearing, the gravitational waves passing through the curved spacetime of the galactic core, those silent ripples carrying messages from ancient collisions across billions of light years, moving through you and through everything without resistance or disturbance. You have rested in the cold and quiet chemistry of the interstellar medium, where the universe assembles the ingredients of life on the surfaces of dust grains in molecular clouds at the edge of absolute zero. And you have traveled forward through deep time, past the fading of the last stars, past the cooling of the last white dwarfs, to the final and most gentle dissolution of the black holes themselves into a darkness so complete and so quieted has no name in any language. All of it, every galaxy, every nebula, every binary star, every gravitational wave, every quantum whisper at the edge of the event horizon, every cold molecule drifting between the stars, every last photon of the fading universe. All of it brought you here, to this moment, to this breath, to this depth of rest. And now the story asks nothing more of you. The words are becoming fewer. The sentences are growing shorter. The dark between one thought and the next is wider than the thoughts themselves. Your body is as heavy and as still as it will ever be while you are breathing. Your mind has let go of almost everything it was holding when this gentle nighttime story began, setting it down quietly the way you might set down something carried a long way, something you no longer need, something that can rest now on its own while you rest too. The black hole is here. It has always been here. 4 million solar masses of patient, dormant, ancient stillness at the center of the galaxy, holding everything together without effort, without drama, without making any sound at all. And you are here too, held by the same gravity that holds the stars, warmed by the same ancient light that warmed the first atoms, made from the same stellar dust that drifted through the dark between the suns for billions of years before it found its way into you. You are the universe resting. You are the cosmos at the end of a long and beautiful night, settling into the deepest possible quiet, releasing the last thin thread of wakefulness, allowing the dark to become complete, allowing the silence to become total, allowing sleep to do what it has always known how to do, to hold you, to restore you, to carry you through the long and restful dark to a morning that will arrive in its own time, unhurried and gentle as everything in this universe eventually arrives. Sleep now. There's nothing more, only the dark, only the quiet, only the slow and patient turning of the galaxy above you, and the sleeping heart of it resting in the deep, and you resting too, completely and finally and deeply at peace.